Vincent walked in carrying 6 shopping bags from brands that didn't belong in the neighborhood. Behind him was Becca. She was 22, wearing a neon lime gym set, and she was holding a phone on a stick like it was a holy relic. "Don't touch the lighting, Vinny," she snapped, not even looking at him. She was staring at her own reflection in the screen. "The foyer has this weird yellow tint. Anthony, where's the guy?" Anthony, who had been the house manager since before Becca was born, stepped out from the dining room. He looked at the bags, then at the girl, then at Vincent. "Welcome home, Mr. Brennan," Anthony said, his voice as dry as toast. "Anthony, look at this," Vincent said, sounding like a man who had just won a prize he didn't know how to operate. "This is Becca. We made it official at the courthouse. She's a new Mrs. Brennan." Anthony didn't blink. "I see. Shall I prepare the guest room for her luggage?" "Guest room?" Becca laughed, a sharp, high sound that made the dogs bark in the kitchen. "I'm the wife, Tony. I'm moving into the master suite. And that huge painting of the woman in the hallway, the one with the pearls, it's depressing. Take it down. I need that wall for my backdrop." "That woman was my mother," Rose said, stepping onto the landing of the stairs. She was 24, and she had spent the last hour watching the live stream Becca had been posting from the car. Becca looked up, squinting. "Oh, Rose, right? I saw your Facebook profile. Your photos are brave. Very no filter. We'll fix that." Michael, Rose's brother, came out of the kitchen with a sandwich in his hand. He stopped dead when he saw Becca. "Dad, tell me this is a prank for one of those hidden camera shows." "Michael, show some respect," Vincent said, though he wouldn't meet his son's eyes. "Becca is part of this family now. She's a lifestyle creator. She's going to help us modernize." Michael looked at the phone stick. "She's currently filming my sandwich, isn't she?" "It's content, Michael. Get used to it," Becca said. She turned to Anthony. "Tony, I need a green smoothie. Spinach, kale, and no ice. If I hear the blender making that loud crunching sound, it ruins my recording. Go." Anthony looked at Vincent. Vincent looked at the floor. "The kitchen is that way, Anthony," Vincent muttered. Dinner was a disaster. Usually, the Brennans ate in a room that smelled of old wooden history. Tonight, it smelled like a nail salon because Becca was doing an unboxing video at the table. She had moved the 18th century silver centerpiece to make room for a pile of free leggings she'd received in the mail. "So, Vinny," Becca said, shoving a forkful of salad into her mouth while checking her likes. "The library. It's a waste of space. All those old books smell like a basement. I'm thinking we gut the shelves and put in a coffee bar and a treadmill. I can do my morning motivation chats from there." Rose put her fork down. The library was where her mother used to read to them. "You aren't gutting the library, Becca. Those books are first editions." "First editions of what?" "Boredom." Becca smirked. "Nobody reads, Rose. It's 2026. If it's not a 15-second clip, it didn't happen. Plus, the lighting in there is chef's kiss. I already told the contractors to come by on Wednesday for a quote." "Wednesday." Michael choked on his water. "Dad, you're letting her bring contractors into the house to rip out the library." Vincent rubbed his face. He looked like he hadn't slept since Vegas. "She needs an office. Mike, she's got 3 million followers. That's a lot of responsibility." "It's not an office, it's a playground." Rose shouted. "Rose, chill," Becca said, holding up a phone to capture Rose's outburst. "Look at this. Guys, the stepdaughter's staying mad. Put a red heart in the comments if you think she needs a makeover." "Stop filming me," Rose said, her voice shaking. "I'm filming my life in my house," Becca countered. She turned to Anthony, who was standing by the sideboard. "Tony, the salmon is dry. It's not camera ready. Tell the cook I want a redo. And tell him to make it look Expensive. Anthony leaned in close to Vincent. So, the cook has been with us for 20 years. He doesn't make expensive salmon. He makes dinner. Just tell him to try. Anthony, Vincent sighed. After dinner, Rose and Michael retreated to the garage, the only place Becca hadn't ventured because the lighting was trash. She's a parasite, Michael said, kicking a tire. She's already got Dad's credit card linked to her Apple Pay. I saw the notifications hitting his phone. $5,000 at a spa, $3,000 on equipment. She's going to burn through his savings in a month. It's not just the money, Rose said. She's trying to erase Mom. The library, the painting, the furniture. She wants to turn this house into a stage where she's the only star. So what do? Dad is clearly under some kind of spell. Rose looked at the security monitor in the corner of the garage. It showed Becca in the living room, making Anthony hold a ring light while she practiced a dance move in front of a 200-year-old mirror. She lives by the camera, Rose said, so we're going to use the cameras. She thinks she's the one in control of the story. But she's about to find out that when you live in a house full of people who hate you, there are no private moments. Suddenly, the garage door opened. Becca walked in, her phone already recording. Oh my God! Look at this! The secret garage meeting. Becca chirped into the lens. Are you guys plotting a coup? That's so vintage of you. Say hi to the fans. They think you guys are super grumpy, Call. Michael stepped forward, but Anthony appeared out of the shadows behind Becca. Madam, Anthony said, his voice like a velvet hammer. Your followers are asking why you haven't tipped the delivery driver who is currently waiting at the gate with your third outfit change of the hour. He is becoming vocal. Becca rolled her eyes. Fine. Vinny, give me your wallet. She vanished back into the house. Anthony looked at Rose and Michael. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, high-capacity memory card. She forgot I'm the one who manages the house Wi-Fi, Anthony said quietly. She thinks her deleted clips are gone. They aren't. Rose smiled. It was the first real smile she'd had all day. Anthony, I think you and I are going to be very good friends. The following morning, the house didn't wake up to the smell of coffee or the sound of the birds. It woke up to a heavy bass drop and Becca's voice shouting through a megaphone she'd bought on Amazon Prime. Wakey, wakey, Brennan family. It's 6 a.m. Time for the success sprint. If you aren't up, you aren't winning. Rose sat bolt upright in bed, her heart hammering. She ran into the hallway to find Michael standing in his boxers, looking ready to commit a felony. At the end of the hall, Becca was dressed in neon green spandex, bouncing on the balls of her feet while a confused-looking cameraman she'd hired off Craigslist tracked her movement. Becca, it's Saturday, Michael groaned. What is wrong with you? Saturday is for scaling. Michael, get with the program. Becca chirped, shoving a camera in his face. Look at him. Guys, this is what low vibration looks like. Can we get some FS in the chat for Michael's morning breath? Get that thing out of my face, Michael snapped, swatting the camera away. Ooh, aggro energy. I love it. Conflict is great for the algorithm. Becca laughed. She turned to Anthony, who was standing at the top of the stairs with a tray of lemon water. Tony, why aren't you in your house staff uniform? I told you, we're filming a day in the life of a billionaire's wife, and you look like you're going to a funeral. I am dressed in my formal livery, madam, Anthony said, his voice flat, as I have been for 30 years. Boring. Wear the pink polo I bought you. It pops on camera. And lose the attitude, or I'll have Vinny replace you with an AI robot. I saw one on Tech Talk that can fold laundry and doesn't give me side-eye. Anthony's jaw tightened, the only sign he was even slightly rattled. He looked at Vincent, who was shuffling out of the master suite in a silk robe, looking completely drained. Vincent, Anthony said, a word. Not now, Anthony, Vincent muttered, rubbing his eyes. Becca says we need to be on for the followers. She's got a big sponsorship deal with a detox tea brand. We all have to drink a cup on camera. The tea is literally a laxative, Dad, Rose said, walking over. She's trying to poison us for views. It's a cleanse, Rose. God, you're so negative, Becca shouted from down the hall. By noon, the library was a disaster zone. 2 contractors were dragging out boxes of Rose's mother's books, stacking them in the damp garage. Becca was busy taping pink lead strips to the mahogany shelves. Stop! Rose yelled, grabbing a box of books from a contractor. These stay here. Dad, tell them to stop. Vincent walked in, looking at the empty shelves. Rose, it's just paper. Becca needs the space for her vibe studio. She says it'll put the Brennan name on the map for a younger demographic. The Brennan name is already on the map because you built half the city, not because some girl is doing dances in the library. Rose shouted. Becca walked over, sipping a green juice. Actually, Rose, your dad, Bren, is old and dusty. My followers think he's a sugar daddy icon. I'm literally saving his reputation. Now, Tony, move these boxes. They are blocking my natural light shot. Anthony didn't move. I do not move books to the garage, madam. The dampness will ruin them. Becca's face shifted. The bubbly influencer persona dropped, revealing something cold and sharp. She set her juice down. I am the mistress of this house. If I tell you to move the books, you move the books. Or do you want to see what happens to your pension when I tell Vinny you accidentally dropped his favorite watch down the drain? The room went silent. Michael and Rose looked at Vincent. Vincent looked at the floor, unable to handle the conflict. Anthony, Vincent whispered. Just help her. Anthony looked at Vincent for a long time. There was a look of deep disappointment in the old butler's eyes that hurt more than a physical blow. As you wish, so. But as Anthony carried the first box out, he caught Rose's eye. He tapped his pocket. The memory card. Later that night, the house was finally quiet. Becca was in the Vibe studio, editing clips. Rose, Michael, and Anthony met in the basement tool room. She's a monster, Michael said. She told Dad that he needs to put her on the board of the construction company so she can oversee the aesthetic of the new luxury high-rises. We have to move faster, Rose said. Anthony, what's on the card? Anthony plugged the card into an old laptop. The screen flickered to life. It wasn't the polished, filtered Becca the world saw. It was a raw footage, the clip she thought she deleted. The screen showed Becca backstage at a photo shoot, screaming at a young assistant. I don't care if your grandmother is sick. You stupid girl. My lighting is off. You're lucky I don't sue you for wasting my content time. Then another clip. Becca talking to her manager on the phone. Yeah, Vinny is a total snooze fest. I have to literally mute him when he talks about his projects. But the prenup has a loophole. If he voluntarily steps down for mental health reasons, I get the voting shares. I'm giving it another month before I start suggesting he is forgetful to the press. Rose gasped. She's trying to gaslight him into a conservatorship. She's more than a gold digger, Anthony said. She's a predator. Wait, Michael said, pointing at the screen. Look at the corner of that clip. In the background of the video, through a mirror, they saw Becca's manager walk into the frame. He put his arms around her and kissed her neck. It wasn't a business manager. That's Jay's, Rose whispered. Her fitness coach. She told Dad he was her cousin. Well, Michael said, a dark grin spreading across his face. I think it's time we help Becca with her engagement. This is the kind of authentic content her followers are dying for. Suddenly, the basement door creaked. Becca stood at the top of the stairs, her silhouette framed by the glowing ring light she carried everywhere. What are you guys doing down there? She called out, her voice sweet but suspicious. Is it family secret time? Because that would make a great storytime video. My stepkids are hiding in the basement. Rose quickly slammed the laptop shut. Just looking for some old photos. Becca, go back to your fans. Becca lingered for a second, her eyes narrowing. You guys are acting real shadycore lately. Just remember, I have the password to the main security gate now. If I decide you're toxic, you'll be vlogging from a motel room. She turned and left. She has the gate, Michael whispered. But we have the truth. Anthony, Rose said, can you get this footage onto the big screen in the library? The one she uses for her live galas. Anthony straightened his tie. It would be my distinct pleasure, Miss Rose. The house was transformed into a billionaire mass party. Becca had spent $50,000 of Vincent's money on pink champagne, velvet ropes, and a guest list filled with creators who didn't know the difference between a load-bearing wall and a drywall. Vinny, you look okay, Becca said, adjusting Vincent's tuxedo. She had made him wear a glittery silver mask that made him look like a tired superhero. Just don't talk too much about concrete or foundations. It's not on brand. Just smile and hold the brand sponsor bottle. Vincent looked like a ghost. He looked at the library, now the Vibe Studio, where a massive 100-inch 4K screen was flashing Becca's latest top 10 glam moments. Becca, the kids, they aren't here, Vincent said, glancing around. They are probably in the garage eating carbs, Vinny. Forget them. We're going live in 5 minutes for the big announcement. Rose and Michael weren't in the garage. They were in the security booth with Anthony. She invited 3 million people to watch this live gala, Michael said, his fingers flying across the keyboard. She's planning to announce that Dad is retiring, and she's taking over as the face of Brennan Construction. The arrogance is her undoing, Anthony said calmly. He was holding the memory card like a weapon. The feed is hijacked. I've bypassed the encryption. When she hits live on her phone, it won't broadcast her face. It'll broadcast the truth. Rose watched the monitor. Becca was standing in the center of the library, the ring lights forming a halo around her. She looked perfect. She looked untouchable. Do it, Rose said. Becca held up a phone. Hey, Becca babes. We are live from the Brennan Manor, and I have a huge surprise. My husband, Vincent, has decided to prioritize his mental health and step back, which means I'm your new CEO. The crowd in the room cheered, but then the cheering stopped. The 100-inch screen behind Becca didn't show her CEO headshot. It flickered to life with the raw footage Anthony had saved. The audio boomed through the high-end speakers. Yeah, Vinny is a total snooze fest. I'm giving it another month before I start suggesting he's forgetful to the press. Becca froze. She didn't realize the screen behind her had changed. She kept smiling at her phone. Wait, why are the comments saying snake? Why are there trash emojis? Guys, stop trolling. Then the next clip hit. Becca screaming at the assistant. I don't care if your grandmother is sick. My lighting is off. The party guests began to whisper. Some pulled out their own phones to record the screen. Vincent's mask slipped. He stared at the screen, watching his wife admit to gaslighting him for his voting shares. Becca? Vincent's voice was low, trembling with a mix of shock and a sudden, sharp clarity. Becca finally turned around. She saw her fitness coach, Jace, on the screen, kissing her neck while she laughed about Vincent's prenup loophole. This is AI. Becca shrieked, her voice hitting a frequency that made the champagne glasses ring. Tony, turn it off. This is a deepfake. Anthony stepped out from the shadows of the library. He wasn't holding a tray. He was holding the master remote. It's not a deepfake, madam, Anthony said, his voice carrying to the very back of the room. It's the footage you forgot to delete from the cloud I manage. The world is finally seeing the real you, and the numbers are staggering. You're trending, but not for your skincare. Rose and Michael walked into the room. Becca looked at them, her eyes wide with a manic rage. She lunged for Rose, her phone raised like a club. You ruined it, you jealous little bitch. Vincent stepped in between them. He didn't move fast, but he moved with the strength of the man who had built half a city. He caught Becca's wrist in midair. "The party is over. Becca," Vincent said. His voice was no longer tired. It was cold. "And so is the marriage. You can't do this." Becca screamed. "I have a contract. I have the digital rights." "You have a police escort," Michael said, pointing to the front door where the flashing lights were already reflecting off the marble. "Turns out, conspiring to commit elder fraud and medical gaslighting is a felony, even for influencers." Becca looked at her phone. The live viewers had jumped to 5 million, but they weren't sending hearts. They were watching her get handcuffed in her $20,000 party dress. As the police led Becca out, the creators and influencers scrambled to leave, terrified of being associated with her. The house was suddenly quiet again. Vincent sat down on one of the boxes of books Becca had tried to throw away. He looked at the neon signs and the pink lead strips. He looked at Rose and Michael. "I was a fool," Vincent whispered. "You were lonely, Dad," Rose said, sitting beside him. "She targeted that." "Anthony," Vincent said, looking up at the butler. "The library. Can we put it back?" Anthony looked at the room. He looked at the Vibe Studio wreckage. "I've already called the movers, so the books will be back on the shelves by morning." Vincent nodded. "And the Wi-Fi? Can we turn it off for a while?" "Permanently, if you wish, sir," Anthony replied. But as they stood there, Rosie's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen. Becca's fitness coach had just posted a video. "I have more," the caption read. Becca wasn't the only one with a secret. Rose looked at Michael. The war wasn't over. Becca was gone, but the damage she'd done was just the beginning. The morning after the live gala was quiet, but the air in the Brennan manor felt like a construction site right before a demolition. Becca was in a holding cell, but her digital footprint was still crawling all over the family's reputation. Vincent was in the library, watching Anthony carefully place a first edition Hemingway back on the shelf. The Neon Queen Vibe sign was unplugged on the floor, its pink tubing looking like a dead snake. "Dad, you need to see this," Michael said, walking in with his laptop. On the screen was a video from Jace, the fitness coach. He wasn't in a gym. He was sitting in a dark office, looking smug. "Becca was an amateur," Jay said to the camera. "But I'm a professional. I have the blueprints for the new Brennan waterfront project. And I have the private emails Vincent sent to the city council to get the permits fast-tracked. If you don't want the hammer to go to federal prison for bribery, you'll pay me $10 million by midnight." Vincent didn't flinch. He didn't even look away from the book he was holding. "He thinks he's playing a game," Vincent said, his voice dropping into that low, gravelly register that made his competitors tremble. "He thinks because he's young and digital. I'm just an old man with a checkbook." "Dad, the emails, are they real?" Rose asked. "I've never bribed a man in my life, Rose," Vincent said, turning around. "But I have played chess with people a lot smarter than a guy who sells protein powder for a living. Anthony, get me the black briefcase from the safe." The meeting wasn't at a fancy office. Vincent told Jace to meet him at the construction site of the waterfront project, a massive, skeleton-like structure of steel and concrete standing over the dark river. Jace showed up in a sports car, looking like he'd already won. He hopped out, holding a tablet. "Hey, Vinny, glad you could make it. You brought the money." Vincent was standing by a massive concrete mixer, wearing a hard hat and his old work boots. He looked like the man who had started this company 40 years ago. No suit, no mask. "I brought something better," Vincent said. "Don't play with me, old man," Jay snapped. "I'll hit upload right now. The city will tear this project down and throw you in a cell next to Becca." "Upload what, Jace?" "The emails." Vincent stepped closer. "The ones you found on the server Becca gave you access to? The ones where I supposedly promised the councilman a kickback." "Exactly." "Check the headers, Jace," Vincent said, leaning against a steel beam. Check the metadata. I knew Becca was a snake the second week she was in the house. I set up a dummy server. Everything she stole, every email, every blueprint, was a fake I planted to see who she was working with. Jace's face went pale. He tapped furiously on his tablet. No, these are encrypted. They look real. They look real enough to keep a bottom feeder like you busy while I tracked your IP address, Vincent said. Suddenly, the floodlights of a construction site roared to life. Anthony stepped out to the shadows, holding a tablet of his own. Behind him, Rose and Michael were recording the whole thing. Mr. Jace, Anthony said, while you were busy hacking a fake server, I took the liberty of looking into your fitness business. It turns out you've been using your clients' credit cards to fund Becca's lifestyle. That's a lot of identity theft for one person. You have nothing, Jace shouted, backing toward his car. We have you on a recorded line attempting to blackmail a federal contractor, Michael said, holding up his phone. That's 15 years, Jace. Minimum. Vincent walked up to Jace, towering over him. He didn't hit him. He didn't have to. The sheer weight of his presence was enough. You and Becca thought you were the ones with the cameras, Vincent said. You thought because I'm 60, I'm obsolete. But here's a lesson in foundations. You don't build an empire by being stupid. You build it by knowing exactly where the rot is before the concrete dries. Vincent reached out, took Jace's tablet, and dropped it into the wet concrete mixer. It vanished with a dull thud. Get off my sight, Vincent growled. Before I decide to be less old school and more hands-on, Jace didn't wait. He scrambled into his car and peeled out, nearly hitting a pile of rebar. Back at the manor, the family stood in the foyer. The house felt different. It felt like home again. Is it over? Becca's name wasn't even mentioned, but Rose knew that was a question. Jace will be picked up by the morning, Vincent said. And Becca, well, Becca is finding out that prison core isn't as fun as he thought it would be. Vincent looked at the spot on the wall where his mother's painting used to be. Anthony had already rehung it. I have a lot of work to do, Vincent said, to make things right with you two, and with this house. Start by getting rid of those neon lights in the library, Michael joked. Already done, sir, Anthony said, appearing with a tray of real coffee. No kale, no probiotics, just strong, black coffee. But as Vincent took a sip, he looked at his phone. It was a notification from the Brennan Group's main account. Wait, Vincent whispered. The bank? There's a transfer I didn't authorize. It's not from Becca, and it's not from Jace. Rose leaned over to look at the screen. The amount was $50 million, half of the company's liquid assets. The name on the transfer wasn't a name. It was a handle at the _ architect. Who is that? Michael asked. Vincent's face went white. A memory from 30 years ago surfaced, a name he hadn't heard since he first started the company, a name that was supposed to be dead. The war isn't over, Vincent said, his voice trembling. Becca was just a distraction. The real predator is finally home. The silence in the library was no longer peaceful. It was a heavy, suffocating silence of a trap finally snapping shut. Vincent stared at the screen, the blue light washing out the color in his face. Dad? Who is the architect? Rose asked, her voice dropping to a whisper. Vincent didn't answer. He walked over to the mahogany desk, his legs looking heavy. He sat down and pulled out a bottom drawer that required a physical key, not a digital code. He pulled out a grainy, black and white photo from the late 90s. It showed a young Vincent standing on a construction site next to a man with sharp, hollow cheeks and eyes that looked like they were made of glass. Anthony, Vincent said, his voice barely a rasp. Do you remember Julian Vesper? Anthony's hand, which had been steady for 30 years, flinched. The silver spoon on his tray clattered. Vesper, he died in the prison fire in '05. Sigh. You saw the report yourself. The report was wrong, Vincent said. Julian was the one who designed the original Brennan algorithms. He was a genius. But he was also a thief. I turned him in when I found out he was skimming from the city projects. Before the guards took him away, he told me he'd burn my house down from the inside. I thought he meant the company. You think he sent Becca? Michael asked, leaning over the desk. Becca was a pawn. A loud, distracting pawn, Vincent said. She was a noise meant to keep us looking at ring lights while Julian crawled through our back doors. He didn't want the house. He wanted the access codes to the city's infrastructure projects. 50 million is just a beginning. If he has those codes, he can shut down the power grid for the whole state. Suddenly, the lights in the manor flickered and died. The hum of the refrigerator, the security system, the Wi-Fi, everything stopped. The only light came from the moon cutting through the library windows. "Is he?" Anthony said, reaching into the waistband of his trousers and pulling out a compact, professional-grade flashlight. "He's not in the house," Vincent said, standing up. "He's at the main server hub at the waterfront. He's going to upload a virus that will wipe us out and take the city with it. Rose, Michael, get in the truck. Anthony, bring the emergency kit from the basement." They tore out of the driveway in Vincent's old work truck. No luxury SUVs this time. Just a beat-up Ford that didn't rely on a computer to start. The waterfront site was a ghost town. The massive cranes looked like skeletal fingers reaching for the sky. Vincent led them to the central control vault, a concrete bunker deep underground. They burst through the heavy steel door. Sitting in the center of the room, surrounded by a dozen glowing monitors, was a man who looked like a ghost. He was thin, his hair bone-white, and his skin looked like parchment. It was Julian Vesper. "You're late, Vincent," Julian said, not even looking up from his keyboard. "Becca said you were getting slow. I see she was right. It took you 20 minutes to realize the money was gone." "It was never about the money, Julian," Vincent said, stepping into the light. "You want to prove you're better than me. You want to see the hammer fall." "I want to see you crawl," Julian spat, finally looking up. His eyes were full of a 30-year-old madness. "I spent 15 years in a hole because of you. I taught myself to code in the dark. I used that girl to play on your loneliness because I knew it was your only weakness. And it worked. You let her into your bed, and she let me into your life." "She's in jail," Julian, Rose shouted. "And you're next." Julian laughed. "Jail? I have the kill switch for the city's water and power right here. One button, and this city goes into the Dark Ages. You think the police can stop a ghost?" Julian's finger hovered over the enter key. "Do it," Vincent said. Julian paused, his brow furrowing. "What?" "Do it," Vincent repeated, walking closer, ignoring the warning from his children. "Hit the button. But before you do, you should know one thing about old-school foundations." Vincent pointed to the heavy copper grounding wires running along the ceiling. "Becca thought I was forgetful. She told you I hadn't updated the security in years. But Anthony isn't just a butler. He's a systems engineer I hired from the military. He didn't just hijack the Gala feed. He built a loop. Everything you're seeing on those monitors right now, it's a simulation. You aren't connected to the city, Julian. You're connected to a closed circuit in my basement." Julian's face went from triumph to terror. He frantically typed, trying to find a way out. No, the transfer. The 50 million. "The 50 million went into a honeypot account monitored by the FBI," Michael said, holding up a tablet. "They've been tracing the destination for the last hour. They're upstairs right now, Julian." The sound of heavy boots and shouting echoed down the concrete stairs. Julian looked at the enter key, then at Vincent. He realized he had been outplayed by the very dinosaur he had mocked. "You used your own daughter as bait," Julian whispered. "No," Vincent said, looking at Rose and Michael with a pride that finally felt real. "I trusted my family to be smarter than your greed. You tried to burn my house down, Julian. But you forgot. I'm the one who built the fireplace." The FBI led Julian away in silence. As the sun began to rise over the river, the Brennans stood on the pier. Vincent looked at the skeleton of his newest building. It was solid. It was real. "I'm stepping down," Vincent said suddenly. "Dad." "No," Michael started. "Not because I'm forgetful," Vincent said, putting a hand on his son's shoulder, "but because a hammer is tired of hitting things. Rose, you take the management. Michael, you take the sights. I'm going to spend some time in the library. I have some books I need to reread." "And Anthony?" Rose asked, looking at the butler who was currently polishing a smudge off the truck's mirror. "Anthony," Vincent said, "is getting a 50% raise and a Fremont vacation to wherever he wants." "I hear the Maldives are aesthetic this time of year, sir," Anthony said with a rare, tiny smile. They drove back to the manor. The neon signs were gone. The pink rugs were in the trash. The house was quiet, but for the first time in months, it wasn't empty. Vincent walked into the library and picked up an old, leather-bound book. He sat in his favorite chair, the one Becca had called hideous. He opened it to the first page and smiled. The ring lights were off. The truth was out, and the Brennans were finally under a foundation that would never crack. Becca thought she could turn a family into a brand. Julian thought he could turn a legacy into a wreck. They both forgot that while digital trends fade, a foundation built on blood and trust is forever. Vincent took the hits, wore the mask, and showed the world that you should never mistake a father's patience for weakness. What do you think? Did Vincent handle the influencer threat the right way, or should he have seen it coming sooner? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe.